On previous days, Sayadaw explained that in the hearing, the nama rupa are arising. And to explain it, according to the text, at the moment of hearing, there are the receptor element, striker element, and the ignition element. By being mindful at the moment of hearing, when the mind falls onto the hearing, when sati and samadhi, when mindfulness and concentration become strengthened, at times one discerns the receptor element, understanding that because the ear sensitivity is good, hearing takes place, or one discerns that hearing is taking place at this place. In this way, one discerns the receptor element. The sound waves strike the ears. When the mind falls onto the striker element, one discerns that the sound are striking the ear. The sound strikes the ear. In this way, one discerns the striker element. As the sound waves strike the ear, hearing takes place. There is hearing consciousness, hearing contact, and hearing feeling. Hearing consciousness, hearing contact, and hearing feeling are the nama mentality, which are the ignition element. By discerning any one of those, one dispels not knowing. In order to cultivate knowledge, one should note hearing with aim and effort, so that the noting mind will reach the hearing, and there will be sustained mindfulness. The mind is aimed onto the object. By aiming the mind onto the object, the mind falls onto the nama and rupa, and one discerns when the noting becomes effective. When the noting becomes effective, one discerns these elements. And in order to discern these elements, one should note it as hearing. One should note it generally as hearing. And when sati and samadhi, mindfulness and concentration become strong, one discerns one by one, and one discerns the nama and rupa, and cause and effect. Discerning distinctly between the nama and rupa, one comes to understand that there is no person, no being, no I, no man or no woman. What really arises are the nama and rupa. And continuing the practice, noting hearing, one discerns that because there are the ears, hearing takes place. Because there are the sound waves, hearing takes place. The ear base and the sound waves are the rupa, materiality. Hearing is the nama, mentality, which is the effect. In this way, one removes wrong view. And in order to discern through one's direct experiential practice, one should be mindful at the moment of hearing, noting with aim and effort. And today, Sayadaw will explain how the elements arise in the seeing, and Sayadaw will just generally explain other examples. In the seeing, there is the eye sensitivity. The eye sensitivity arises. The eye sensitivity is produced by the deed done in the past, and it is supported by citta, uttu, and ahara, supported by the consciousness, temperature, and the nutriments. So in the eye sensitivity, there are many eye sensitivities. One cannot show it, pointing at it, but there are the eye sensitivity in the eye base. The image strikes the eye sensitivity. In the eyes, there are the eye sensitivity where the visible object strikes. The eye sensitivity is the receptor element, and the visible object strikes the eye sensitivity. The visible objects in colors such as green, red, yellow, blue, these visible objects strike the eye base, and these visible objects are the striker element. When the visible object strikes the eye base, the eye sensitivity, one comes to know the object that has been seen. One comes to know it as red or blue or yellow. So as the visible objects, the striker element, strike the eye sensitivity, the receptor element, the seeing consciousness takes place. Seeing consciousness is the ignition element. On the eye sensitivity, on the eye base, the visible object and seeing consciousness come into contact, and it is called phassa. And there will be seeing contact. Based on the visible object, whether the visible object is pleasant or unpleasant, there will be good seeing feeling, bad seeing feeling. And when the visible object is neither good nor bad, there will be neutral feeling. When the yogi reaches the higher knowledges, reaching the higher knowledges, sati and samadhi, mindfulness and concentration is strong. So at the stage of higher knowledges, whatever object that the person sees, whether lovable or whether hateful object, but as the person's mindfulness is strong in the higher knowledges, it will just be mere seeing. When even if the person sees pleasant object, love does not arise, there will not be raga, lust, there will not be greed based on the pleasant object that has been seen. And also, seeing undesirable object, one will not have dosa connected with what he or she sees. As the person is cultivating knowledge in the Vipassana practice, there will not be likes or dislikes with the object that has been seen. In the seeing, there is the receptor element, the eye-based striker element, which is the visible object, and the ignition element, seeing consciousness, seeing contact, and seeing feeling. So these striker element, receptor element, and ignition element are present in the seeing, and one just know it as seeing. One should just note it as a whole, just as seeing. And when noting seeing, there will just be mere seeing. It will not continue. If one is lacking mindfulness, it doesn't stop there at the seeing, but kilesa, defilements, arise connected with what has been seen. So it is very important to note seeing as soon as the seeing arises in order to discern the receptor element, striker element, and the ignition element. And in order to discern cause and effect, one should be mindful at the moment of seeing. Seeing does not last long. It arises at one moment and dissolves at another. In order to discern the impermanence, one should observe seeing. One should note it as seeing as soon as seeing takes place. And by being mindful, the defilements cannot arise. One should note seeing as soon as the seeing takes place. The visible object arises due to the relevant cause, and the visible object strikes the receptor element, and seeing takes place. One should be mindful as soon as the seeing takes place, so that it will just stop in the seeing. The seeing consciousness is neither wholesome nor unwholesome. One should have good quality mindfulness. One should cultivate good quality mindfulness. And one should note seeing with aim and effort so that mindfulness will be sustained on the object. Sati mindfulness will be of good quality mindfulness. There will be satipatthana, firmly, closely established mindfulness on the object. There will be extraordinarily outstanding mindfulness that is sustained on the object. When sati mindfulness is strong, the noting mind falls calm collected on the object. Noting seeing as soon as seeing takes place, the seeing, it will just be mere seeing. One has to note so that the mind will be sustained on the elements that are assisting in the seeing. When the mindfulness gains momentum, the mind falls calm collected on the object, The mind falls calm collected on the element in the seeing, and the noting mind rubs and strokes against the object. Noting becomes effective, efficient. There will be certainty, and it will just stop at the seeing. It doesn't continue until the defilements arise, but just seeing will stop right there without leading to defilements. By noting seeing, one discerns the nama-rupa, cause and effect, and one comes to understand that because there is the eye sensitivity, the rupa, and the visible object, which is also rupa, because of these eye sensitivity and the visible object as the cause, seeing consciousness, seeing contact, and seeing feeling arise as the effect, which are nama, and one will discern without reflecting, thinking, but through one's own practice. And when the mindfulness becomes strengthened, one can discern impermanent suffering and non-self. The object arise and pass away, and thus they are suffering. These nama-rupa are arising due to their relevant cause. These nama-rupa are arising just like a stream of current. Nobody is creating the nama-rupa. The nama-rupa are arising as cause and effect. They are not created by anyone else. In order to discern that there is no creator creating, one should be mindful at the moment of seeing. One should not be slow to note it. One should note it with aim and effort so that the noting mind will fall onto the object. One should not just be noting the object flippantly or an easygoing way or casually, but one should note it accurately, precisely. But if the noting is superficial, then the person will not discern. By being mindful as soon as seeing takes place, noting seeing with aim and effort, the unwholesomeness will not arise. But if the mind slips away from the object, it shows that the person is not exerting effort in the noting. The mind is being slack. When the mind is being slack, it shows that it is lacking the mental strength, not wanting to exert effort, wanting to take easy in the practice, becoming exhausted, and there will be lack of mindfulness. Only if there is mindfulness, the defilements cannot enter. Mindfulness protects the mind away from defilements. Rakha, protecting the mind away from defilements. Avarana, blocking the defilements. But if there is lack of protection, of mindfulness, there will not be goti, there will not be safety or security. In order to keep the mind safe, secure, away from the object, one should have mindfulness every single second. If there is lack of mindfulness, one will not discern the elements in the seeing, and the mind is distracted. There is uddaca, restlessness, and it is unwholesome. In order to discern the nama-rupa, one should note it as seeing at the moment seeing takes place. Not being mindful in the seeing, the concept arises such as it is a person, a woman, a man. Seeing the form and shape of the person take it as man, woman, person, and the defilements will arise. If there is lack of mindfulness, there will be restlessness, the defilements arise, there will be nimitta kaha, the person takes signs or form or shape such as a person, man, woman, on the object that has been seen. If there is lack of mindfulness, there will be mutual interest between man and woman. Seeing the opposite sex, seeing the form or shape of the other person, raga, lust, can arise if the person take it as beautiful or handsome. If the other person is unpleasant, then one will think of it as ugly, and there will be anger, hatred, aversion. In this way, lobha, dosa, greed and anger can arise based on seeing if there is lack of mindfulness. As much one cultivates lobha and dosa, there will also be delusion involved. Not noting the object, there will not be viriya, sati and samadhi. There will not be effort, mindfulness or concentration. And one will be dim, vague, and one will just see that it is a shape of a man, woman, and there will be nimitta sankappana based on what has been seen, based on the shape or form what has been seen. One will take it as beautiful, handsome, or hateful. In this way, thoughts arise based on what has been seen. And it doesn't stop there. First, one looks at the other person as a whole, the whole body. And later on, the person go into the detail. There will be anubhyansanakaha. One will go into detail to look at each individual features, such as the hands, how pretty the hands are, how the fingers are, how the forehead is, how he or she acts, how he or she smiles. In this way, the person go into detail in looking at the other person in the features or parts of the body. And the lobha, greed, increases, dosa, anger increases when there is anubhyansanakaha, going into details in looking at the features or parts of the body, each and individually. Rice alone is not good to eat, but if one is very hungry, even rice alone is appetizing. But to any ordinary person, rice is taken with curry as well as the side dishes. eating the rice with curry, with side dishes, it is very appetizing. And the example for Westerners, brown bread itself is not good, but if brown bread is taken with ham, cheese, then it is appetizing. When looking at the other person just as a whole, it is not as interesting, but if one goes into detail at looking at the features of other person, how the hands are, how the feet are, how the forehead is, the cheeks, the chin, the lips, and so on, then the defilements increase more and more. There is more interest in the other person, and if the other person happens to be beautiful or handsome, then the person does not want to take his or her eyes off the other person. So in this way, if there is anubhyansanagaha, the defilements will be in greater degree, and the person keep on thinking about him or her, and the kilesa defilements grow bigger and bigger. And in this way, the person's concept of man, woman gains the upper hand. The person is overwhelmed by the concept of man or woman. Not being mindful as soon as one sees, mindfulness will not be developed. There is no protection, no safety, no security, no freedom from the defilements. As there is lack of mindfulness, there is no protection. The mind gets agitated with raga, lust. The mind gets agitated with dosa, anger, and thus there will not be safety, security, no freedom from the defilements. There will not be sandhi, peacefulness. One does not gain the danga sandhi. One does not gain the momentary peace. If there is lack of mindfulness for 1 second, for that second, the person is losing peacefulness. And if the person is not being mindful for many seconds, the person loses the peacefulness for many seconds. Only if there is sandhi, peacefulness, there will also be happiness. If the mind is not free from kilesa defilements, there will not be upasama sukha, there will not be upasama rati, and knowledge does not arise. As the knowledge does not arise, the person is also losing sambodha rati and sambodha sukha. 1. Sila, morality, that has been practiced will not be ruined, but one is losing Chidana Sila when there is lack of mindfulness. Lacking mindfulness, the mind will not be calm, collected, and thus one is losing Samadhi Sikha, concentration training. By noting the object, one's noting mind fall onto the elements, discerning them. But as there is lack of mindfulness, one does not discern the object, one does not discern the impermanent suffering or non-self, and thus one is losing Panya Sikha, wisdom training. So in this way, one loses the Samvara Sila, the practice of restraint. One loses it, and Panya Sikha, the wisdom training, is also lost, as there is lack of mindfulness. Sila, Samadhi and Panya, morality, concentration and wisdom, are one's true benefit, keeping the person pure, clean, gentle and lovable. So the practice, Sila, Samadhi and Panya, guards and protects the person, and the person will be true human, the person will have humane mind, the person becomes outstanding human through the practice of Sila, Samadhi and Panya. Losing mindfulness, one is losing to become outstanding human. As much one misses or fails to note the object, by being flippant in the practice, one is losing Sila, Samadhi and Panya, and one is losing one's true welfare, one's true benefit. It is a loss. Sadatansa prihapeti, one loses one's own welfare and benefit by failing to be mindful. For people, it is important to make a living by earning. One can make a living to be well-to-do, to have high standard of life. So these are one's benefits in the worldly sense. One should be endowed with Sila, Samadhi, Panya, which are one's true welfare and benefit. Just as when one does not make money, the person will be poor, in the same way, when the person is flippant in the practice, the person will be poor, not cultivating Sila, Samadhi and Panya. And the person also loses Nekhammarati, happiness of renunciation. The person loses Viveka Sukha, as the person loses happiness of seclusion. Upasama Sukha, the happiness calming, suppressing the defilements, will also be lost, and one also is losing Sambodha Rati. Just as a person who does not make money will be poor, in the same way the person who does not practice will be poor in Sila, Samadhi and Panya, failing to cultivate Sila, Samadhi and Panya. As a person, one needs to make one's living by earning. In the same way, the person needs to earn Sila, Samadhi and Panya, which are one's true welfare and benefit. In order to cultivate one's true welfare and benefit, one should be mindful every single second. And this will be all for today.